At exactly 2:20 p.m. local time on December 12, 2025, the port of Odessa is freezing, and dock workers are rushing to unload the Scent T, a massive neutral cargo ship flying a peaceful flag. They think they are safe. They think the rules of war protect them. They are wrong. High above the heavy gray clouds, invisible to the naked eye, a Geron 2 loitering munition has already tipped its nose down, diving at 110 miles per hour. The target coordinates are locked. The fuse is armed. The ship below isn't carrying tanks. It isn't carrying ammo. Its hold is packed with heavy industrial generators, the last hope for a power grid collapsing under the weight of winter. But the Russian algorithm guiding the drone doesn't see humanitarian aid. It sees a target. In exactly 6 seconds, that lifeline is going to turn into a fireball. And as the drone screams toward the deck, one terrifying realization hits the command center. This wasn't an accident. The ship had its tracking turned off. Moscow hunted it down anyway, but to the Russian targeting algorithms, humming inside a Geron 2 drone approaching at 110 miles per hour, this ship is nothing more than a set of digital coordinates. The drone dives out of the low cloud layer. The sound of its engine, a lawnmower-like buzz, is the only warning. Impact. The explosion doesn't just tear through the steel hull of a neutral ship. It ignites a diplomatic and economic firestorm that Moscow, in its arrogance, did not calculate. "Look, the drone is going to explode!" a worker shouts on a viral video, his voice cracking with disbelief, moments before the screen turns orange. But as the smoke clears over the burning generators, this operation reveals itself not as a military success, but as a strategic blind spot, a self-inflicted wound that may cost Russia its economic future. To understand the magnitude of this error, we must first understand the weapon. This was not blind artillery fire. This was a precision execution. The weapon used was a Geron 2, a loitering munition guided by GPS and inertial navigation systems. This technology means the target coordinates are entered beforehand. The target is deliberately selected hours before the flight. A human operator looked at a map, saw a civilian ship docking, and decided to burn it. But the digital trail proves something even darker. On December 11th, exactly 24 hours before the strike, the Scent T had turned off its automatic identification system. It was traveling in stealth mode, a common tactic for merchant vessels trying to safely deliver humanitarian aid to a war zone. Russian intelligence tracked it anyway. They used satellite reconnaissance or human intelligence to hunt a civilian ship delivering warmth to a freezing city. They stalked it across the Black Sea, waited for it to dock and become a stationary target, and struck it at its most vulnerable moment. And this was not an isolated incident. This was a campaign. 24 hours later, on Saturday, December 13th, the ship Viva, loaded with sunflower oil destined for Egypt, is sailing in open waters, well outside the range of Ukrainian air defense systems. Another drone strikes. Statistically, it is impossible for two neutral ships from the same logistics fleet to be hit by random fire in 36 hours. This is a pattern. And in the world of naval warfare, a pattern implies a policy. Russia has decided to declare war on neutral trade. While black smoke was rising from the decks in Odessa, a very different, surreal scene was playing out 1,600 miles away. In the marble halls of Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, Vladimir Putin was walking the red carpet at the International Forum on Peace and Security. The visuals were carefully curated. Handshakes, warm smiles for the cameras, and speeches laden with words like cooperation, stability, and, ironically, the safety of civilian vessels. The irony is razor sharp. While Putin preached about protecting infrastructure in Turkmenistan, his drones were burning it in Ukraine. But beneath the polished diplomatic surface, there was chaos. The summit was not going well. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, was kept waiting for 50 minutes to meet with Putin. The seating arrangements were awkward. Protocol was collapsing. In the photos, Putin appeared distracted, tense, perhaps realizing that the power move in Odessa was backfiring in real time. He thought he was projecting strength by attacking a neutral ship to show the world he could strangle Ukraine at will. In reality, he was making a fatal error on the chessboard of maritime economics. Moscow has forgotten a simple, undeniable geographical truth. The Black Sea is not just a Russian lake to be policed. It is Russia's economic lung. And the straits, the Bosporus and Dardanelles, are the windpipe. By attacking neutral parties with missiles, Putin didn't just hurt Ukraine. He placed a knife against his own throat. Let's clarify the magnitude of the money at stake. After losing the European market due to Western sanctions, Russia pivoted its entire energy economy to Asia. It transports a significant portion of its crude oil and petroleum products, estimated between 15% and 25% of its total seaborne exports, through the Black Sea toward markets in India and China. Millions of barrels pass through this route every single day. Furthermore, winter is coming. When the Baltic Sea freezes, forcing Russia to use icebreakers which slow down logistics, the Black Sea becomes Russia's only warm water exit to the global ocean. By turning this sea into a free fire zone, Putin has effectively turned the route used by his own multi-billion-dollar tankers into a conflict zone. If the safety of civilian vessels is eliminated, Russia, which relies on this route for oil exports worth billions, will be just as harmed as Ukraine, waiting for generators. The fire on the Sink-T was extinguished in hours, but the fire it started in the boardrooms of London will burn for months. At Lloyd's of London, the global center of maritime insurance, risk assessors are rewriting the tables. The fundamental rule of maritime economics is simple: no trust, no trade. If a neutral ship can be targeted by a precision drone in a commercial port, then no ship is safe. The distinction between combatant and neutral has been erased by Russian missiles. This attack inevitably causes an upward shift in the war risk premium. For shipowners, entering the Black Sea is no longer a commercial risk. It is financial suicide. Insurance companies are reaching the point of freezing policies or increasing premiums up to 5% or even 7% of the vessel's value for a single trip. Think about that cost. On a tanker carrying $110 million of oil, that is a $6 million fee just for insurance. If a shipowner is afraid to send a ship to Odessa, they will think twice before sending it to the Russian port of Novorossiysk on the other side of the same burning sea. Since the marine ecosystem is interconnected, if civilian vessels catch fire in a basin, alarm bells ring for all trade in that basin. Russia has effectively sanctioned itself. And now, we reach the strategic checkmate. Russia relies on a shadow fleet, hundreds of old, rusting tankers with complex ownership structures sailing under flags of convenience to bypass Western price caps. These ships are dangerous. They lack proper maintenance, they turn off their transponders, and they carry questionable insurance. Until now, maritime authorities, particularly Turkey, which controls the straits, have tolerated these ships to keep global oil prices stable. The region tolerated these environmental risks to manage tension. But the attack on December 12th changes the equation. By attacking neutral vessels, Russia has given the authorities a legal weapon far more dangerous than a missile: bureaucracy. War does not need to be declared to close the straits. International conventions grant control powers on the grounds of safety of life, property, and the environment. Imagine a scenario of silent but effective bureaucratic control. Following the attack on Odessa, authorities could increase protocols. They could demand verifiable protection and indemnity insurance guarantees from every tanker transiting the straits. The Shadow Fleet cannot provide this. Their insurance is often murky or state-backed by Russia, which holds little weight in international courts. If authorities start inspecting suspicious vessels for safety risks, citing the war zone conditions created by Russia, logistics will slow to a crawl. A longer inspection of undocumented vessels could have a paralyzing effect. Ships could be held for days or weeks. Russia's true nightmare is not facing a NATO navy, but getting caught in the gears of maritime bureaucracy. With this move, Russia has handed its adversaries the perfect excuse to tighten the noose around the Shadow Fleet without firing a shot. The commercial fleet is the first domino to fall. After November 29th, some major logistical players had already slowed operations, adopting a wait-and-see approach. Now, with the Sink-T and Viva targeted, the sector's patience is exhausted. The most likely scenario is that the reputable commercial fleet will withdraw from the Ukrainian route and the risky northern route of the Black Sea entirely. Russia believes it has isolated Ukraine. However, it is overlooking a huge truth. A significant portion of the tankers carrying Russian oil are controlled by independent Greek, Turkish, and Chinese companies. These are profit-driven entities, not political allies. When a neutral ship is attacked, it sets a deterrent precedent. If the commercial fleets withdraw because the risk is too high, Russia loses the physical means to export its oil. They have the oil, they have the buyers, but they no longer have the trucks to move it. Moscow tried to open a valve by force, but all it achieved was jamming the mechanism shut against itself. The collapse of this logistical bridge, due to the loss of trust, has the potential to deprive Moscow of billions in foreign currency. Putin might have thought that by shaking hands in Ashgabat while bombing Odessa, he was flexing his muscles. He thought he was showing the world he could strike anywhere, anytime. In reality, he placed the jugular of his own economy under the scalpel. This move is the biggest unforced error Russia has made on the diplomatic chessboard this year. It is no longer necessary for the West to send F-16s to stop Russia's oil revenue. A single signature on a maritime safety protocol is enough. A single change in the interpretation of the Montreux Convention, a single decree on insurance requirements, could wipe billions of dollars from the Russian budget every month. The ship that caught fire in Odessa may have been extinguished, but that fire has now spread to diplomatic centers in Ankara, London, and Brussels. Putin's promise of security has turned into panic. He has shown he is unable to protect his own trade routes, attacking instead the ships of countries he considered neutral. When you see Russian tankers waiting in the straits in the coming days, remember, they are not just waiting for passage, they are actually queuing up for the Kremlin's economic collapse. As the smoke from this attack clears, the picture that remains is a strategic error of historic proportions. Although the shooting of the Sancti is presented by Russian propaganda as a strike on military logistics, the data shows a deliberate tracking of a humanitarian target. This takes the attack out of the category of fog of war and moves it into a direct challenge to the international order. From a geopolitical perspective, this event creates immense pressure. Until now, the West and regional powers have used the card of closing the straits very cautiously. They wanted to avoid escalation. But an attack on a commercial ship carrying humanitarian aid tests this strategic patience to the limit. Public opinion sees an attack on civilian ships. The pressure on authorities to take tougher, visible measures against the shadow fleet will inevitably increase. Russia has removed the plausible deniability that kept the oil flowing. Operation Odessa proved one terrifying thing to the world. You can have the largest army and the most ruthless drones, but if you turn your own trade route into a minefield, you will be the one who steps on it. Russia has bombed the very road it uses to take its goods to market. The war is no longer fought only on the front lines of the Donbas. It is being fought in insurance policies, transit logs, and the nervous boardrooms of logistics companies. And on this front, Russia is vulnerable. So, what's your take? Was this a calculated message from Moscow, or a massive strategic blunder that'll tank their oil revenue? And how should the world react? Is it time to shut the straits to the shadow fleet? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm push these analyses to more people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next turning point.